coming in here, and she said, "So, are you going to finally endorse Nikki Haley for?" Gets it.
It's certainly a big pickup for Haley. Earlier today, DeSantis' campaign manager told Ordana Bash that the expected endorsement was, quote, meaningful. Joining me now, two CNN political commentators, Kate Bedingfield, former Biden White House communications director, and David Urban, a one-time campaign advisor to the former president. Kate, do you think DeSantis has an opportunity to to surge in the next 5 weeks?
I think it is an uphill battle based on everything we've seen. We've seen as the Republican field has continued to winnow, Trump has only gained ground in the polls. So that doesn't suggest there's a whole lot of opportunity for somebody else to come in. But, you know, DeSantis has said time and again that he expects to win Iowa, that his expectation is that he's going to win Iowa. So he's put a lot of his eggs in the Iowa basket. I think tonight what he needs to try to do is connect with voters on a human level. I think, you know, we saw the debate last week. We saw the four candidates go back and forth on, sort of attacking each other and attacking each other's policy positions.
What's up, guys? We're gonna
so
do
what
this
DeSantis
town
has an
hall here.
opportunity to do tonight is to try to tell his own story, to connect in a way that makes a Republican voter say, you know, I trust him. And he's somebody who I think I want to see in the White House.
I mean, David, that is the strength of these town halls, theoretically, for a candidate. I think it's why they like doing it, because it is a format. I mean, it's an audience of people who very well, want to vote for a Republican, probably like DeSantis. And as Kate said, they want to see him as a human being. The Des Moines Register NBC News poll says 51% of likely caucus goers say that Trump would be their first choice. DeSantis far behind, 19%, Haley at 16%. Do you see any scenario in which either DeSantis or Haley suddenly surge over the next month?
Listen, Anderson, it's a Sisyphusian task for DeSantis to push that big rock up a hill, right? So Anselt's a great pollster. Last month in October, DeSantis was down by 3. So he did move. Nikki Haley kind of stayed static at 16%. DeSantis up to 19%. I don't think there's any universe that he wins Iowa, but I think it's important that he has a very strong second place finish. So if he finishes in the mid-20s someplace, I think that'd be a big victory for him. Give him a lot of momentum going into New Hampshire, where he may not fare as well. But he's got all his eggs in the basket here in Iowa. He needs to do well tonight. He needs to do well on January 15th.
And Kate, in that same poll, Des Moines Register, NBC News, 73% of likely caucus goers believe that Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden despite his legal problems. What does that tell you?
Well, that tells me these other Republican candidates have a huge uphill climb here. I mean, you have a former president who's mired in court, who is charged with trying to subvert our democracy, and the Republican base in Iowa believes that he can win. So that tells me immediately in the short term, it's going to be a really hard, it's a hard task for any Republican to get traction, because he has this really intense specific loyalty with Republican voters.
Unless they get mired in court, because being mired in court only seems to help
They
him.
have 5 weeks to try to overthrow our democratic system. Broadly, it tells me that the general election in November is going to be very close. And I think, there's a kind of tendency a year out to look at polls and say, oh, Biden's stumbling, or, oh, well, if Trump were convicted, he couldn't win. And that's just not the case. Our country is incredibly polarized. The bases are very loyal to their party, and there's a very small sliver of truly persuadable moderate voters, and that's where the election is going to be won or lost. And the fact that Donald Trump's legal troubles don't have Republican voters saying this isn't the guy we want to put forward to try to defeat the sitting president means this is going to be a very, very close race.
David, DeSantis has touted this endorsement for the Iowa governor, Kim Reynolds, as obviously Sununu gave the endorsement to Nikki Haley. Trump is way ahead in New Hampshire. Could the Sununu endorsement help Haley enough on the margins that she pulls off a strong second place showing?
Yeah, I think she will. I mean, you have independents and Democrats allowed to vote in that primary there, so I think she will do well. She'll have a much stronger showing than she's going to have in Iowa. And she's hoping that that's going to slingshot her then into South Carolina with some momentum. But still, as you said, Anderson, the person at the top of these polls by a long margin is still Donald Trump by double digits. And that's not changing in Iowa. That's not going to change in New Hampshire. It's not going to change in South Carolina. So, a lot of Republicans are just kind of shrugging their shoulders and wondering, what's this all about?
Yeah. Kate, there's this other poll. Let me get this. The Wall Street Journal poll, former President narrowly leads President Biden in a hypothetical matchup. Nikki Haley would beat Biden 51% to 34%. Do you buy that? Do you think it's accurate?
I don't think it's terribly surprising given what we've seen about how voters are feeling about a Biden-Trump rematch. I mean, we've seen a lot of voters saying they would like another option. What I do think is that were Nikki Haley somehow to draw an inside straight and become the Republican nominee, she would be in the barrel, and there would be criticism of her. And so I think it's not representative of what this matchup would look like if she actually became the Republican nominee, which seems like it's a very long shot of happening.
Bedingfield, David Irvin, thanks so much. The CNN Town Hall with Ron DeSantis. Minutes away. More on the DeSantis' strategy next.
Going home, I'm not the same person I was. I made it! My big ass is in here.
What's up, and welcome everybody to the Ron DeSantis Town Hall with Jake Tapper. This should be an interesting event tonight, so we're going to be covering it. We got Vivek's Town Hall tomorrow. I believe it's with Jake Tapper as well. So I guess Governor Sununu endorsed Nikki Haley. I honestly kind of saw that coming. That's probably a detrimental blow to Chris Christie. He was kind of counting on that. But it doesn't matter because Trump's going to win.
Blood is a war between dragons.
You ain't seen what I can do.
iPhone 15 Pro for your husband. iPhone 15 Pro.
Carolers, to tell me you want a new iPhone, a better plan's Verizon.
No way they take this wreck.
Yes, they will, and you'll get iPhone 15 Pro and Apple TV 4K and Apple One, all three on them. Do that. We tried to tell him, but he paid us a lot.
It was a lot.
This holiday, turn any iPhone in any condition into a new iPhone 15 Pro with titanium, Apple TV 4K, and 6 months of Apple One. All three on us. It's holiday every day with Verizon.
Whenever you're hungry, there's a deal on the Subway app. Buy 1 footlong, get one 50% off in the Subway app today.
Now that's a deal worth celebrating.
Man, what are you doing? Get it before it's gone on the Subway app. The Subway series is getting an upgrade. The new number 33, the Teriyaki Blitz, with double cheese and teriyaki marinated meat.
It's like a perfect steak spiral in the double cheese coverage.
If you say so, Peyton. Who knew the Subway series could get even better?
This is the place where anything can happen.
He is a basketball savant.
This is the place where every second counts.
With two. Shot away. Kleba wins the game.
This is the place where NBA history
Here's Curry for the record.
will be made.
It's good. Intensity level is off the charts.
Max, the one to watch.
The new CNN Saturday. First of all, with Victor Blackwell, Smirkanish, The Chris Wallace Show, The Amanpour Hour, the week's biggest stories, the weekend's hottest topics. Saturday morning, starting at 8 on CNN.
I'm spending the holidays with Food Network.
You look like fun.
You are rocking it.
I gotta impress some boys with some of my favorite chefs cooking up their favorite holiday dishes right here in my kitchen together. Come on!
That looks fantastic. Yeah.
You're handling this like a chef. I'm so proud.
All new Selena Plus Chef, home for the holidays. Thursday night at 8 on Food Network. Stream on Max.
This is a holiday wars like you've never seen before.
Excuse me?
For the first time, world-class cake and sugar artists are joined by top cookie artists.
That redefining what cookie can do.
All new Holiday Wars, Sunday night at 9 on Food Network.
Another look at the CNN town hall with Ron DeSantis, which begins in just a minute. A lot riding on his ability to connect with Iowa voters in these final 4 weeks and 6 days until the caucuses. Turnout, he says, will be key. One more programming note, Nikki Haley and Chris Sununu, the New Hampshire governor who just endorsed her, sit down for an interview tomorrow with their Dana Bash. You can see it at noon Eastern Time on Inside Politics. But first, the CNN Republican presidential town hall with Governor Ron DeSantis. It starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Iowa, where in just 34 days, caucus goers here will cast the very first votes of the 2024 presidential race. We're live at Grandview University in Des Moines for CNN's Town Hall with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. I'm Jake Tapper, and right now, the presidential hopefuls are furiously campaigning to win over Republicans here in Iowa. It's a state that can make or break presidential candidates. Governor DeSantis has visited all 99 of Iowa's counties, and he won the endorsement of the state's popular governor, Kim Reynolds. But he is facing steep competition from his rivals, including the Republican frontrunner, former President Donald Trump. Tonight's event is about the voters. Governor DeSantis will have the opportunity to answer questions directly from the Iowans in this room on the issues that will help them determine who wins the Republican nomination. I will have some questions of my own, but this is not an interview. This is a town hall. In the audience are voters who say they plan to participate in the Iowa Republican caucuses, both registered Republicans and those who plan to register as Republicans by the time of the caucus. To find tonight's questioners, we reached out to Republican-affiliated groups, as well as business groups, farm associations, parent groups, young professional organizations, religious groups, and conservative advocacy organizations. Guests of the DeSantis campaign and Grandview University are also in the audience tonight, but they're not going to get to ask any questions. We have asked everyone here to be respectful to each other and to Governor DeSantis so that voters in the room and you at home have a chance to hear from the candidate. Now, please welcome Governor Ron DeSantis.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.
So let's get straight to the voters if we can. Our first question comes from Tim Bianco from West Des Moines. He owns a manufacturing business, and he's on the board of directors for the Iowa Association of Business and Industry. He says he's a Republican and is currently undecided. Tim.
Welcome, Governor. And first of all, thank you for your service as a veteran. It's important to recognize your service as an American, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why should my employees trust you to return us to the prosperity that they enjoyed under President Trump?
Well, Tim, thanks for the question. I hope your business is doing well. I know things are tough right now with a lot of things. I think you trust me for a couple reasons. One, if you look at what we've done in Florida, our economy is ranked #1 of all 50 states. We've boomed like we've never have, even in the face of all the inflation and the interest rates, which we have to obviously struggle with too. But our unemployment rate is 60% lower than states like California, which are peer states. I'd also say this. I think the first 3 years of the Trump administration, the economy is better than it has been. But that last year with COVID, I think was mishandled dramatically. Shutting down the country was a huge mistake. Printing trillions and trillions of dollars was a huge mistake. That set the foundation for the inflation that we see. Granted, Biden came in and poured gas on the fire. It was reckless that he did trillions. But if you look, you have trillions and trillions of dollars. Of course you're paying more for that. You're going to have inflation when that happens. So I'm going to come in. We're going to get the inflation down. We're going to open up energy so that you pay less for gas. And we're going to get the interest rates down so you can actually do things like afford a home. So I think your hardworking employees are going to have a friend in the White House. And I think we're going to be able to turn this country around.
So, Governor, Tim's question does get to a challenge you have. You've been on the campaign trail here in Iowa for months. You visited all 99 counties. Nobody can accuse you of not working for it. But former President Trump still holds a commanding lead in the state, at least according to the Des Moines Register poll. What is your strategy to convince Iowans like Tim to pick you and not Trump?
Well, first of all, Iowa voters will choose, not pundits and polls. I'm sick of these polls. Haven't we learned as Republicans that we were supposed to have a red wave in November of 2022? What happened to that? The polls were telling us Hillary Clinton had a 99% chance to win the presidency 2016. That didn't happen. I look at my own reelection. A lot of these polls they'd put out, they'd say I was going to win by 4 or 5%. I won by 20%. So they're using the polls for a narrative. The reality is we've got the best organization anyone's ever had in Iowa. We've got tens of thousands of Iowans who've already committed to caucus for us. You have the opportunity to make this decision. Do not let the media choose your candidate. Do not let a pundit choose your candidate. Choose the candidate that's best going to represent your values and is going to give this country the leadership that it deserves. I'm confident that I'm that guy. I'm grateful that we already have a huge number of Iowans who've already signed up to support us. And we ask all the Iowans who are undecided, come join our team. I will not let you down.
So just a few hours ago, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was in Washington, D.C., in Congress and in the White House, trying to make the case for more U.S. support for Ukraine's war against Russia. On that topic, I'd like to bring in Dawn Mann. She's from Urbandale. She works in sales, and she's a Republican who says she's currently undecided as well. Dawn.
Welcome to Des Moines. If you had to pick one, which current conflict, Ukraine or Israel, is more critical for the American people to support with tax dollars, and why?
Well, thanks for the question, Don. Well, for me, that's an easy answer. It's the state of Israel, because they are our strongest ally in the Middle East. We have a relationship with them that's like no other, and they have the whole world against us. They require the United States to be there to stand with them as the friend. You know, Ukraine has all of Europe. These European countries need to start pulling their weight. They don't meet their NATO dues. I mean, some of them have done, Poland, Finland, but a lot of them are not doing that. They have all these people. Russia is a threat to Europe. They need to rise to the occasion, rev up their industrial bases, and start arming themselves so that they can help Ukraine and keep Russia in a box. But Israel is a unique country in terms of our relationship. And as governor of Florida, it's something that when the attacks happened against them, that impacted my state because I had so many people that go back and forth. You had people that were stranded in Israel. They couldn't get back. The State Department wasn't helping them. The embassy wasn't helping them. So I did an executive order. We scrambled planes, and we rescued over 700 people from Israel and brought them back to the United States of America. When you're in an executive position, you need to be able to lead, particularly in crisis situations. We stepped up and helped our friends who were in Israel, and we would do that as President of the United States.
So just to follow on these important wars, earlier today, Zelensky stressed that Ukraine needs continued U.S. support as never before. Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst has previously said that there's, quote, no doubt we need to support the Ukrainians. Would you send support to Ukraine as president?
I think what the Republicans in the Congress are doing, I think is the right thing. What they are saying is, you've got to defend our own country's borders before you start sending money all across this world. And for example, I've supported in the past defensive weapons under Trump because I figured, try to keep Russia out. I think that that's in our interest. But they have spent tens of billions of your tax dollars to subsidize farming in Ukraine, to subsidize small business in Ukraine, to pay salaries for bureaucrats and pensions for Ukrainian bureaucrats. How is that something that's more important to this country than our veterans, than some of the other problems we have? And from a national security perspective, that open border threatens our country. We have people from all over the world that have gone in there. And so I think what these Republicans are saying is, let's get this done. And Biden's going to have to compromise on that. And he's not willing to do it. Look, as president, I'll do the border on day one. Day one, we're going to declare it a national emergency. I'm sending the military to the southern border. We're going to stop the invasion. When people are here illegally, they have to be sent back. You have to do that. We have people that have come from Iran, other parts of the Middle East, China, Russia, you name it. They've come from all over the world illegally. These people don't have our best interests at heart. This is a security threat to us. So that is something we have to do. And I think that most people that I talk to who are frustrated with some of the money going overseas, they want Ukraine to beat Russia. We don't like Russia, but here's the thing. You got to take care of your own house first. And the D.C. elites, they ignore the problems affecting the American people. You know why? Because it doesn't affect them, and that is wrong.
So we're going to get to the border because there's some questions about it here. But on the topic of Israel's war against Hamas and the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, President Biden said behind closed doors today that Israel is losing support for the war globally because of its, quote, indiscriminate bombing of Gaza. And President Biden also voiced concerns over members of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet who he says don't support a two-state solution, which Biden says is the natural, peaceful end of what needs to happen here. Do you share President Biden's concerns at all? What's your view?
So I think it's true that the world's coming after Israel, but it's because of anti-Semitism. It's because you have these people at the UN who are disgraceful, who are trying to blame Israel. They wouldn't even condemn the Hamas attack at the United Nations. So Israel gets targeted and singled out more than any other country in the world. They're the only Jewish state in this world, and everyone's come gunning for them. The morning of the attack, I was actually in Iowa, and I said, we stand with Israel, we can all do that. But here's what's going to happen. Weeks, months in the future, you're going to start to see them blaming Israel for all this. So you look at what may be happening in the Gaza Strip. If there's civilian casualties, that is Hamas's fault. Hamas should release the hostages. Hamas should unconditionally surrender. Israel cannot possibly live with a terrorist group that wants to annihilate their entire country and kill every Jew and usher in a second Holocaust. So they have every right to defend themselves. Now, in terms of the two-state solution, I don't think you can have a, quote, two-state solution when the Arabs will view it, the Palestinian Arabs will view it as a stepping stone to the destruction of Israel. Why have you not had a solution there? Because they've never recognized Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. And until they're willing to do that, anything that would be done would just weaken Israel. And so I think Bibi and a lot of people in his cabinet, no, they've offered massive concessions in the past, and it's been rejected. And that's the problem. The people in the Gaza Strip, as well as in Fatah, they want to destroy Israel more than they want their own state. And that is wrong, and we cannot stand for that.
Let's bring in David Witt. He works for a minor league hockey team. He will be sworn into the Iowa National Guard next week. Congratulations. That's wonderful. He's a Republican who says he's deciding between you and Donald Trump. David?
Thank you for your service, by the way. Welcome to Des Moines.
Yeah.
My question is sort of a two-part question. What are some things different you can do to prevent illegal immigrants from crossing the border, as well as what actions can the Border Patrol take that are new?
Okay. Well, David, thanks for joining the National Guard. It's important. We've got a lot of great people in Florida, and I think it's going to be very rewarding service for you. What can you do? Well, one, you can change the policy. Remain in Mexico. You have people that are abusing the asylum. They come, make a bogus asylum claim, and then they get a sheet of paper, say, go ahead into the interior of our country and come back in 2 years for a court date. That is not a deterrent. So we will not entertain those claims. They can wait. I think we need to reform the law so that the claims don't even happen, but we're not letting people in. No way. We're going to also empower states to enforce immigration law. People are coming across the Rio Grande. Texas should be able to deport and send them back. That's a force multiplier for us. I am going to build the border wall. And I remember in 2016, I went to the rallies with Donald Trump. He said he was going to build the wall and have Mexico pay for it. And that didn't happen. And why didn't it happen? Well, one, I think he got distracted and he didn't do it on day one. But two, he didn't utilize the levers of power that he had. So how do you get Mexico to pay for a wall? They're not just going to give us money, although Trump said at the time they would do that, because people like Jake would say, wait a minute, how are you going to be able to do this? Oh, they're going to pay for it. They're going to pay for it. They didn't do it. Here's what you do. You impose fees on the remittances that workers send back to foreign countries, Mexico, Central America, really all over the world. You'd raise billions of dollars. We'll put it into constructing the border wall. And here's the thing. We as Republicans, probably 99%, blame Biden for 8 million people coming in illegally. It's been bad for the country, and I do too. But here's the thing. If Trump had built the border wall, it would have been very difficult for Biden to bring in all those many people. That's why you want a wall. It's a physical fact of life that even an open border president would not be able to get around. So I will get the job done. The talk is cheap, and I'm sick of Republicans always using this issue every election cycle to try to get donations and to try to tell the people they're going to do it. we are going to bring the issue to a conclusion.
So one of the questions I have for you, obviously the fentanyl crisis is huge and disastrous, and it hits people in Florida, D.C., Iowa. As a way to stop the flow of fentanyl to the U.S., you have promised to shoot drug smugglers, quote, stone cold dead at the border. How is that legal, and how can you ensure that you're not going to end up shooting innocent people?
So, one, the drug cartels are invading our country, and they're poisoning our people and killing them by the tens of thousands. So not only do we have a right as president, you have a responsibility to fight back on behalf of the people of this country. And what that means is we're going to designate the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. So it's not just willy-nilly saying we're going to shoot anyone. How do you know? Just like when I was serving in Iraq. When I was in Iraq, and anyone that knows that served there, the Al-Qaeda did not wear a uniform that said Al-Qaeda. They all dressed the same. So someone could be walking down the street. You don't know if they were a civilian or if they had an IED strapped to their body. And so you had to make judgments about hostile intent, hostile action. You positively identify people. We're going to have intelligence. We're going to have a lot of things operating in ways that we've never done before. But for those who complain about me wanting to lean in on this, are you fine with letting all these people die? And one of the things that I've done just as governor and as a candidate, I've met a lot of these angel parents. These are parents who've lost kids to fentanyl overdose. Really, they're getting poisoned, high school, college, in their 20s. And what you find is most of these cases, they're not drug addicts. They're maybe stressed out. Someone tells them to take this pill. So they take it not thinking it would be fatal, but it's laced with fentanyl. It poisons them, and then they die. We actually had a case in Florida. Family rented an Airbnb unit. 18-month-old baby was crawling on the carpet. There happened to be residue from fentanyl on the carpet that killed the baby. Can you imagine losing an 18-month-old? This is happening all across the country. And I met a fella a couple of months ago, and he told me he lost his son from a fentanyl overdose. And he's like, you know, what really is the salt in the wounds is that these people in D.C., they don't care about what's going on. They're not viewing this as a sense of urgency. They're not doing what it does. I can tell you this, I care. I think this is a sense of urgency. I think we need to fight this scourge. And it's not just the supply, it's also demand. And in Florida, we've actually done an opioid recovery network that's reduced overdose deaths. We're one of the only large states in the country where we can say we actually had a year-over-year reduction. So I do think you fight demand, you do treatment, and you do supply. But I am not going to let these drug cartels ruin the lives of the American people any longer.
So this is an issue we care a lot about on my show, too. And former Congressman from Florida, Ted Deutsch, his nephew died of this. And it was exactly as you described. He was taking an herbal supplement, completely legal, and it just happened to be poisoned with fentanyl. One of the problems with trying to crack down on this, as you know, I'm sure, is that according to U.S. government data, the overwhelming majority of fentanyl is smuggled into this country by American citizens and through the legal ports of entry. That's how it's getting in.
Well, that's what we know about. I mean, yeah. I know they do that, but when you have a wide open border, we don't even know what's coming across the wide open border. There's so many people that don't even get interdicted. So I think it's a combination of both. I think not only do we have to worry about the land ports of entry, I'm going to do a maritime task force to try to interdict the precursor chemicals that are being brought into Mexico. Because it used to be China would make it, and then they'd send it. Now China's sending the precursor chemicals, and then the cartels are making the final products and do it. You know, they'll put the fentanyl in candy to try to market it to very young kids. This is really sick stuff. So I think we have to have all options on the table. But here's the thing. When they see we're willing to fight back, that's going to make a difference. Because they've been running all over us. They've been eating our lunch at the border. That changes on January 20th, 2025.
So I want to bring in Jeannie Lubovs. Did I pronounce that correctly? All right, good. So a retired engineer and Republican from West Des Moines. She's currently an undecided voter. Jeannie.
Hi. Older Americans have worked hard to pay into Social Security. They've earned it and are counting on it to be around for many years to come. How will you protect Social Security for future generations?
Well, thanks for the question. It's as governor of Florida, I know a few people on Social Security, believe me. And here's the thing. When some people try to say it's an entitlement, It's not an entitlement. You've been taxed to pay into it your whole life, and people have paid into the Social Security for decades. And so seniors can know promise made is promise kept. We understand the importance of making sure that you have the benefits, especially when prices are going up so much. And you get a cost of living adjustment, but it's not enough to cover what's actually happening. The groceries have gone up way more than 10%. They've gone up 50%, 75%, maybe 100%. So promise made, promise kept. Congress has taken money out of the Social Security fund for decades. They used to have surpluses there. Congress needed more money to do its spending, so they'd take it and they'd spend it, and then they'd write IOUs. That's the main reason why Social Security is having fiscal challenges. I also think if we go in and reduce inflation and interest rates, that is going to make a big difference. Cost of living adjustments will actually go down, but your benefit will go farther if prices are stable. And also on the overall budget, we're going to be $1 trillion on interest on the national debt. That is unsustainable. We've got to get the interest rates down, and we've got to get that debt situation better, because that could overwhelm everything that we're doing in this country.
So just a quick follow on that. So I hear what you're saying about current seniors, Jeannie Lubov's, but what about for younger people? I guess I shouldn't even point at myself anymore, but for younger people, your rival, Ambassador Haley, says that you and President Trump aren't being fully honest in this issue. She says without any reforms being made to Social Security, the program ultimately will not have enough money to pay young people like that one right there their full benefits. And isn't she right? I mean, doesn't Social Security need some reform?
So what she has said, Nikki Haley, she has claimed that the retirement age is way, way, way too low. That's what she said. So, you got a lot of people that have worked hard their whole life. Life expectancy is declining in this country. It's tragic, but it's true. So to look at those demographic trends and say that, you would jack it up so that people are not going to be able to have benefits, I mean, I don't know why she's saying that. You got to look at the trends. But yes, overall, in the long term, how do you strengthen the program? You got to have bipartisan agreement. President Reagan in the early 80s, he did a commission with Alan Greenspan. He had Republicans and Democrats. They worked through the issues, they agreed, and then they moved forward. I think it's the only way you can do it. You can't do this stuff on a party line vote. You're just not going to be able to get it done. So I'm willing to work with both sides, and we got to come up with a solution for the long term. But in the short term, just know, seniors, this is a priority for me to make sure that you have your benefits. My grandmother lived till 91. Social Security was her sole source of income. So I understand what a lot of people are going through.
So your service has come up a couple times tonight. You're the only veteran running in the Republican primary. You served, for those who don't know, as a Navy JAG officer in Iraq. How did your service shape your foreign policy views, in particular, how you might approach sending men and women into harm's way?
Well, I think it's a great question. So having been there and seen what a lot of our Marines were going through, our special operators, our soldiers, as Commander-in-Chief, I hope to never have to put our service members in harm's way. But look, I believe in peace through strength. I think if you build up American strength, we will deter conflict in this country. But you never know what's going to happen. But my pledge to all the active duty, all the veterans, all the family members of active duty is this. I will never put people in harm's way willy-nilly. If we're going to do it, there needs to be a clear objective that we're trying to fulfill. We need to send people, when you send people, they need to have everything they need to be able to accomplish that objective. That objective has got to be something that's in the vital national security interests of our country. And then when they achieve the objective, we got to bring them home. We can't have these situations where people are toiling for years and years in these foreign countries with no concrete example of victory. So I hope to never do it, but if we ever need to, we are going to win. And I think the lesson of the post 9/11 era was we got into conflicts and we weren't achieving any clear-cut victories. You got to know what are the limits of what the military can do. When I was in Iraq, part of what we were trying to do was create a democracy in the Middle East. Well, nation building doesn't work. Social engineering in foreign countries doesn't work. When you have to go to defend this country, you go, you do the job, and you bring our people back home.
Over the weekend, Donald Trump compared the bravery of those who have served in the military with his decision to debate Hillary Clinton in 2016 after the Access Hollywood tape came out, and you tweeted about it. You seemed offended by it.
So, Donald Trump, so he's, when he gets off the teleprompter now, you don't know what he's going to say. He's a different Donald Trump than 15 and 16. Back then he was colorful, but it was really America first about the policies. Now, a lot of it's about him. And when he's doing this and says that debating Hillary Clinton after Access Hollywood was like an example of bravery that some general told him was more significant than soldiers who fight and die in war, that is offensive and that is wrong. Debating is the bare minimum that a political candidate should do. And I would note, Donald Trump has refused to debate throughout this campaign. He doesn't think he owes it to Iowans. He doesn't think he owes it to Granite Staters to show up and debate and answer questions. He doesn't think he should come and have to answer questions from voters. A lot of times he'll come in, give a speech, and leave. He's not going to visit all 99 counties. Nobody is entitled to this nomination. You've got to earn this nomination. And part of the way you do it is you show up, you answer people's questions, you shake their hands, and you show them that you care about the future of their communities. I care about the future of these communities. I care about the future of this country. I'm not running for me. This is not about my issues. It's about your issues, your family's issues, and the future of this country.
We'll be right back with more from Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis. Stay with us.
Well, that was a pretty eventful first half hour. So I guess we can go ahead and dissect what he's been talking about. So I thought his answer on Social Security was kind of crap. Surprisingly, this is an area where Nikki Haley and Chris Christie are right, which I can't believe I'm saying that. But DeSantis' answer there is just we're going to grow our economy, we'll grow our way out of the problem. That's not going to cut it. If we don't do something now, in 10 years, Social Security will see a 24% decrease in pay for everybody. And some things we're going to have to do is, we're going to have to raise the retirement age, because when Social Security was first created back in the New Deal era, life expectancy was in the low 60s. It's now late 70s, early 80s for men and for women. So it was originally created to support people for a couple of years. Now it's trying to support people for 20 years. So we can't sustain that. We've got to have some kind of reform. And some of the ideas that I think are pretty good are raising the retirement age a couple of years, not for the people who are already using Social Security or people that are in their 50s that are just about to get on Social Security. We're going to have to raise the retirement age for people like me, Gen Z, and millennials, because if we can't adjust for a couple more years before retirement this far in advance, then we've got bigger problems than Social Security. Social Security is not supposed to be a main source of income. It's a safety net to keep you out of poverty. There is still some individual responsibility. You still need to have a 401k. You still need to plan for retirement. You still need to have your own savings. Social Security is just meant to make sure that you're not poor and eating out of a dumpster. Another thing we need to do is means testing. So people like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, people who have so much money that they couldn't spend it in 3 lifetimes, should not be getting the Social Security check. That's just wrong, and that's so much more money that we could be putting into people's checks who really do need it. But other than that, his answers were pretty good, I guess. I agree we need to stay out of wars. That's where Nikki Haley is a complete disaster. She's a warmonger and just wants endless wars. But other than that, it was pretty good. I wish he would have answered the question more directly on the Social Security question. Yeah, that was probably... So, you see, the problem with a lot of these people in their town halls is the questions are pre-screened. The candidate staff come in ahead of time, meet the people, review their questions, and then they select the people who are going to get called on. So the candidate knows in advance who's going to be getting the question and what the question's going to be. And it's usually always a softball question. They never pick the people with the hard questions. So yeah, a lot of it is scripted. That's where I kind of give Chris Christie some credit because he calls on people at random. So Vivek does this too, and none of the questions are pre-screened or anything like that. But it looks like we're coming back, so we will discuss at the next commercial break.
Welcome back to Iowa and CNN's presidential town hall with Governor Ron DeSantis. I have some questions for you about health care that people in the audience have. But before we get to them, I want to ask you about your family's health situation because, as many of you probably already know, you and your wife, Casey, who's with us here tonight, have talked on the campaign trail about her breast cancer diagnosis in 2021. Thankfully, she is in remission. She's all good now. But yes, absolutely. What was that experience like for your family?
Well, at the time of the diagnosis, we had a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And obviously, any of these diagnoses are tough. But I think when you're talking about breast cancer with a mother of young kids, it's especially devastating because you're thinking about these kids may not have a mother. It was also a situation where my wife, she just has a sense. She felt something. She went to see the doctor. Doctor cleared her. And then she came back to me and she said, you know, I don't know. And I was like, you're fine. Because, like, for me, if a doctor told me I'm fine, I would never think twice. I'd be off to the races on that. But she had a sense. So she really fought for herself to be able to get a mammogram. And then when she got it, it came back, unfortunately, with bad news. But had she not been willing to do that, who knows what would have ended up happening. And so, you know, it's when you see somebody that you love go through the chemo and it just sucks the life out of you and everything she had to go through. As a husband, I'm there doing what I can to be the helping hand and to help with the family and everything. But you almost wish like I could do a chemo for her so she didn't have to do it all this time. But it was not fun. But I'd say she's better than ever now with her health. So that's really all that matters. And
that's a great
our prayers, people's prayers were answered.
Let's turn now to Chelsea Chernesky, a graduate student here at Grandview. She's studying mental health counseling. She's a Republican from Urbandale who says she's supporting you. Chelsea.
Hi. First of all, I would like to thank you for your service. That's much appreciated. And I want to know, what is your stance on the right to life and abortion, and what will you do as president to protect or not that right in all 50 states?
Well, thanks so much for the question. Thanks for your support. I appreciate you doing that. I'm pro-life. I believe in creating a culture of life. I've been able to follow that up in Florida by enacting pro-life protections to protect unborn that have a heartbeat, a detectable heartbeat. And that's something that the legislature passed and we signed earlier this year. I think, though, one thing in this race that I think is important to point out is Donald Trump flip-flopping on the right to life. So if you look in January of 2020, when he was president, he stood in the March for Life, and he gave a speech. And if you read that speech, he said that all life is a gift from God. He compared the unborn child in the mother's womb to being the image of God. He said it was important that we had protections in law. And that's what he was saying in January of 2020. Now, he has attacked states that have enacted protections like heartbeat bills as being a terrible, terrible thing. So how do you square that March for Life speech with now trashing states that have advanced protections that he claimed to cover? Was he not being honest in January of 2020? Or has he just flipped his position to now what he's saying in 2023? I think that's a huge problem because we know people come at this from different angles. It's a big, diverse country. There's a lot of division about it. But you should be consistent in your beliefs, especially on something that's very fundamental. And he has not been consistent. And I think there's a lot of voters in Iowa who really care about this, who need to know how he's changed his position.
I want to ask you about a big story dealing with abortion that's in the news. Yesterday, the Texas Supreme Court ruled that a pregnant woman in Texas could not obtain an abortion after her fetus was diagnosed with a genetic disorder called trisomy 18. It's almost always a fatal condition. Now, her lawyer said that carrying the fetus to term could compromise her future fertility and also put her life in danger. Do you think the law should require a woman in that kind of difficult position to carry the baby to term?
We got to approach these issues with compassion because these are very difficult issues, and nobody would wish this to happen on anybody. If you're in that situation as a mother, that's an incredibly difficult thing to have to deal with. What I can tell you is in Florida, the Florida legislature passed a heartbeat bill that contained exceptions for things like rape, incest, life of the mother, fatal fetal defect, and victim of human trafficking. And so I signed that bill. Those are very difficult cases, and they made a prudential judgment that having those exceptions were things that made sense. So I have signed legislation that included that, and I understand they're very difficult. And these things get a lot of press attention, I understand, but that's a very small percentage that those exceptions cover. You know, there's a lot of other situations where we have an opportunity to realize really good human potential, and we've worked to protect as many lives as we could in Florida.
Staying on the topic of health care, you recently said you're going to have a, quote, better plan to, in your words, supersede and transcend Obamacare. Some of the key provisions of Obamacare include protecting people with pre-existing conditions and allowing for the expansion of Medicaid for lower-income individuals. Will your Obamacare replacement include those provisions?
So in Florida, I've signed legislation for pre-existing conditions, and I know a lot of other states have done it. Obviously, it's a significant thing that you want to do. What we're going to do, and this was a big promise, of course, when Donald Trump ran in 2016, that he was going to repeal and replace Obamacare, because he did correctly, and I've always said Obamacare is not making health care more affordable. It's made it more expensive. That was the central claim, and it hasn't worked. It's more expensive than ever. But I think they failed because they didn't have anything to replace it with. The American people at the time were telling him and telling Congress, yeah, we know Obamacare's flawed, but you got to produce something that's going to be a replacement. So what we're going to focus on is accessibility. We want good health care to be accessible to people. We want affordability. It's got to be affordable. And we want accountability in the system. And there's going to be a lot that we're going to do. We'll roll out a bigger plan as we get deeper in the election season because we're working with a lot of experts in Congress and all this stuff. But if you look, the patient in this system now is at the back of the bus. The doctor is now at the back of the bus. Who's at the front of the bus? Big insurance companies, big pharmaceutical companies, big government bureaucracies. It's an iron triangle that really is a system rather than something that's an individual care. So we want to make sure that people are protected. I think your insurance should be portable. The whole reason the pre-existing condition came is because it was tied to people's jobs. So if you lost your job while you were sick, then all of a sudden in the past you wouldn't do. That insurance should be able to go with you. So we're going to work on all those things. But the number one thing is affordability and cost. And to do that, you're going to have to upset the apple cart on some of these really big entrenched interests.
When can the voters expect to see your plan?
We'll roll it out. I mean, we're working on it. It's the type of thing where, we're putting out the broad strokes. You kind of campaign in poetry, then you govern in prose with that. But we are absolutely going to be dealing with insurance. We're going to be dealing with, pharmaceuticals. We're going to be dealing with all those things. Another thing we're going to deal with, because healthcare, the biggest healthcare issue we've had in this country in the last 4 or 5 years is COVID-19. I am going to bring a reckoning to those agencies that lied to this country. The CDC, NIH, FDA, people like Fauci, all those things that really harm this country, and yet nobody's been held accountable. So we're going to go up there, we're going to clean house. But for example, here's the thing. FDA, they will approve a COVID mRNA vax for 6-month-old babies. There is no data to support such a thing for emergency use. So the question is why are they doing that? Well, pharmaceutical companies are going to make money. Where do the people from the FDA go to work when they're done in the FDA? They go to work for Big Pharma. We're going to stop the revolving door from the FDA to the pharmaceutical.
I want to bring in Rob Ewalt. He's a farmer, livestock producer, representative of the Iowa Soybean Association, a Republican from Davenport who is undecided. Rob.
Governor, thank you for taking the time. And undecided, I'm learning quite a bit about you, so I appreciate that. I just want to talk a little bit of trade. China remains a vital market for the U.S. soybeans. How do you plan to approach trade relations with China to ensure access to the significant market for our soybean exports, while also addressing trade-related challenges and ensuring fair competition for American farmers?
Well, Rob, thanks for the question, and thanks for what you do, man. You're the backbone of this country, and I've learned that being in Iowa. You know, we're a big ag state in Florida, but the way it really permeates the culture here, I mean, it's the bread and butter, and you guys are really the salt of the earth. They're patriotic, God-fearing folks, so God bless you. So we're going to do a couple things. One, there's other markets in Asia apart from China that we don't have adequate access to. I'm going to use leverage to be able to get it. And it may not even require a trade deal. I mean, we have levers over some of these countries that we can pull. So we're going to work to do that to get you more access to that. Now, with respect to China, we are going to reevaluate and change the relationship because what's happened is they don't follow the rules. They've eaten our lunch on so many things, and we've allowed critical things to migrate to China that we need for our national survival. Pharmaceuticals, things involving military weaponry, on and on down the line. If we had a crisis, a world war, we're going to ask China to give us all this stuff. So we need to repatriate and reshore some of these very key things. And that'll involve pulling certain levers. It'll involve, for example, isolating the different areas that we want to bring back. We're also going to have to do tax and regulatory things here to make it viable to be able to do here. But yes, we want to work to expand markets for our agriculture. We know it's important. We know you guys can feed the world, and we're going to be doing that in a variety of ways.
Thanks, Rob. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more from Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis.
Lamo, he just called him Rob. All right, so it seems like everybody wants to talk about abortion. So here's my plan. And here's what I would run on if I were a candidate for president. So obviously, Republicans are losing all over the country on the abortion issue. We lost in Kansas, we lost in Ohio, and we're just not winning on the issue overall. So what I would do is to ease the concerns of independents and to assure that we still get the evangelical vote. I would run on a national ban of abortions in the third trimester. So I would outlaw late-term abortions on the federal level, and then I would allow the states to work out the details from there. So that way you can stick to conservative principles, because states' rights has always been a conservative principle. So allowing the states to work it out. And then I would clarify that I would want the people to decide the issue, not state legislatures, not governors, but ballot referendums, people going in and voting directly on the issue on a ballot instead of a state legislature. And then I would ensure that the ballot has more than just the two extremes. Like the problem in Kansas and Ohio is you had two options, one for the most extreme pro-life position and then another for the most extreme pro-choice. So you've got to have some middle ground. You can't just have all or nothing. So I'd probably give voters about 4 choices. And if I were one of these candidates and I actually became president, I would be in these states where there hasn't been any ballot referendums, and I'd be putting pressure on these state legislatures to put it on the ballot, and we would settle this issue once and for all. And yeah, I agree. DeSantis, that's every word out of his mouth. Every answer is Florida. Yeah, I'm not voting for Nikki Haley. Sorry, bud. You can take it to the bank. I'd probably rather vote for somebody like Joe Manchin before I vote for Nikki Haley. All she wants is war and to enrich herself and her rich donors. Yeah. Where is this guy coming from talking about Haley? We got to make sure she gets nowhere near the Oval Office. And, of course, I want Trump to win, but we got to make sure DeSantis and Vivek come in strong second and third so we can completely annihilate Nikki Haley, make sure she never runs for office ever again in this country. coming back here. Well, I guess we'll have one more ad.
And no annual maximum. For your free information kit with all the details, call now or visit sendinfokit.com.
Physicians Mutual. King Charles, tomorrow at 10 on CNN.
Welcome back. We're in Des Moines, and you are watching CNN's Republican Presidential Town Hall with Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, I would like to introduce you to Jessica Dunker, President and CEO of the Iowa Restaurant Association and the Iowa Hotel and Lodging Association. She's a Republican, mother of 5. She says she's supporting and has volunteered for Nikki Haley. Jessica.
So thank you for being on the debate stage.
Sure.
Do you think it's possible for the 4 candidates who made last Wednesday's debate stage to come together and throw your support behind one of you in an effort to create an actual competitor for President Trump?
Well, I appreciate that sentiment, Jessica. Well, look, I think that's what the Iowa caucus is. I think you guys choose who that person is. And I think I'm confident it's going to be me, because here's the thing. I'm the only one running that can beat Trump one-on-one. Why? Because the other candidates cannot get enough support from core Republicans and traditional conservatives to be able to go. You can't just win with a slice of the party. You got to have broad support. We'll be able to do that going forward. And also, I think the reason why I think I should be the guy, we need a change agent in Washington. We don't want somebody that's just going to go up there, be part of the establishment, rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. You know, I want real serious structural change. I want to see term limits for members of Congress. I want to see a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. I want to see a line item veto for the president. I want to see agencies moved out of Washington, D.C. To other parts of the country. I want to see a reduction in the scope of government. And that's going to take a leader that has backbone, that's going to be willing to fight for you, and has a record of actually delivering big victories. I'm the only one running who's done 100% of my promises fulfilled in Florida. I'm also the only one running. If you look at the folks that are doing the bad policies on the left that's causing the problems in the country, I'm the only one running who's beat these people. We beat the teachers union with school choice. We beat Fauci on COVID. I beat Soros on the prosecutors, the left prosecutors that we removed. We beat the Dems on election integrity. So we have delivered victory after victory. That's what you deserve as the next president of the United States.
So earlier this evening in New Hampshire, Republican Governor Chris Sununu endorsed your opponent, Ambassador Nikki Haley. I'm wondering how much harder you think that's going to make your path to victory in New Hampshire.
Well, unlike some people running, if someone doesn't endorse me, I'm not going to go trash them. Chris is a good guy. He's done a good job. And I'm going to continue to say he's good. He's a really good campaigner. I mean, excellent campaigner. So in that sense, I think it's a benefit for her. But here's the problem. Even a campaigner as good as Chris is not going to be able to paper over Nikki being an establishment candidate. I mean, she's getting funded by liberal Democrats from California, like the founder of LinkedIn, people on Wall Street, like the head of J.P. Morgan. She's getting all these folks that are going to her. Guess what, guys? Those folks do not want to see conservative change in this country. So why are they gravitating to her? And I think her positions on things like saying her first day in office, she's going to demand that everyone produce their name on social media. She said, I want your name. What, you're going to dox the whole country? Conservatives have been singled out for expressing opinions on social media. People have been canceled. They've lost jobs over this. Why would she want to put our own people under there? So I think there's so many problems with her policy positions. She's really reflective of the old, failed Republican establishment of yesteryear. We do not need to go back to that. But I will say this. Chris is he's done a great job as governor. He's a great campaigner. And I look forward to campaigning with him next fall in New Hampshire as the Republican nominee.
I want to bring in Tom Moreland. He's the area director at a healthcare company from Urbandale. He's a Republican who says he is supporting your campaign.
Is it Tom, you said?
Yes, Tom. Okay. Tom Moreland.
Good evening, Governor DeSantis. Ads continue to run in Iowa showing you are saying you're going to ban fracking, while also showing a debate performance where you said you were for fracking. Can you please tell us your position and why you told the women on the video you would ban fracking?
Yeah, so that ad has been debunked by even liberal media. You have to frack to be able to get the energy. Marcellus, the Permian Basin, I did a huge energy rollout in September. We're opening it all up. Federal lands, we're going to get the permitting going. We're going to do all that. You have to frack. What she's talking about and clipping is the state of Florida voters in our Constitution said no drilling offshore on our beaches. A lot of people in Iowa go to Marco Island and all these places. And I think the voters, it wasn't for anything with global warming. It was because they didn't want to see a spill that would then hurt the tourism. And they made that sing. So as governor, of course that I've done that. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to frack throughout this country. You have to frack to be able to get this done. I also think local control in terms of states. Look, if New York City doesn't have to drill in Central Park, you guys don't have to drill in places that may not you might want to. But yes, we are going to do it. We are going to have an energy boom in this country. We're going to be independent. We're going to be dominant. We're going to lower your gas prices, and we're going to lower energy costs all throughout. And here's the thing, because what Biden wants to do with the Green New Deal, what they're doing in California, they want to increase demand for electrical, like by forcing electric vehicles, which I oppose, but at the same time, they're kneecapping reliable energy, oil, gas, and the like. That has blackouts in California. That will lead to blackouts all throughout this country. We need reliable energy. When I respond to a hurricane in Florida, I can't get the lights back on with windmills and with solar. I need oil and gas.
We'll be right back with more from Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis.
So that was a pretty good segment. That was a pretty good answer he gave about the endorsement with Chris Sununu. And that fracking issue is going to be a problem for him in the general election. No doubt about it. That's going to be crucial in the state of Pennsylvania. And I did do some research into this. Nikki Haley completely lied about it. The truth is they didn't want to do offshore drilling on the beaches in Florida. So the voters of Florida voted on a referendum to amend the Constitution. DeSantis never actually passed a bill to ban fracking. And yet, I don't understand how anybody could be behind Nikki Haley. An alarming amount of Democrats and left-wing independents just think she's great, and I'm not sure why. And as Republicans, if we see that, that should be a complete red flag to us. No Republican should be supporting a candidate who is being just loved by the left. And Nikki Haley is the most two-faced person there ever could be. The day after January 6th, she blamed Trump and said it was all his fault. And then a few weeks later, when it turned out the voters still loved him, she flip-flopped and said it wasn't his fault. When she was asked in New Hampshire if she would sign a federal abortion ban, she said no, she would let the states decide. Then when she went to Iowa, a more conservative state, she said she would sign a 6-week ban. So she's just all over the place. She used to call anybody who was pro-choice a baby killer. Now she says, now that it's unpopular, we shouldn't judge people for being pro-choice. So you just can't trust a word that comes out of her mouth. Well, I think that was a good thing when he flew those. Well, if you think Haley's great just on the fact that she's a woman, then most likely you're a left-winger because the most important thing to you is identity politics, and that's something the left does. We don't do that on the right. We care about policy, and we care about the quality of the candidate. I know you left-wingers will vote blue no matter who. You guys will all hold hands and jump off a left-wing cliff if it means staying together. So, I mean, good for you. I think she's terrible. And her being a woman does not excuse her being a warmonger, and it doesn't excuse her being corrupt. So, but good luck to you, buddy. You can put lipstick on Dick Cheney all you want. It doesn't change it. But I think it was good what Ron did, setting those migrants up to Martha's Vineyard and other places, because all these left-wingers talk a big game about being sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. But then when it comes on their doorstep, all of a sudden they don't want to have to deal with it. So if they're going to say this crap, they're going to have to own up to it and pay the price. Deal with the consequences. Otherwise, shut your mouth. And you know, if we're going to talk about Iowa, I really don't know what's going to happen. I assume Trump's going to win, but he didn't win it in 2016. Ted Cruz won Iowa. Then Trump went on to win New Hampshire. Oh, here we go.
Welcome back to CNN's Republican Presidential Town Hall with Governor Ron DeSantis. We're here in beautiful Des Moines. I want to talk to you about a topic. I don't know how much people out there outside of Iowa know about this, but it is dominating the local news here in Iowa. Republicans are divided over a new Satanic Temple holiday display in the state capitol building. Governor Kim Reynolds, who has endorsed you, she says it is, quote, absolutely objectionable, but, quote, in a free society, the best response to objectionable speech is more speech, unquote. Some Republicans are calling for it to come down. What do you think? Should that display be allowed in the Capitol?
So it's interesting. I heard this, and then I was like, well, how did it get there? Is that even a religion? And lo and behold, the Trump administration gave them approval to be under the IRS as a religion. So that gave them the legal ability to potentially do it. So I don't know what the legislature, how they analyzed it, but it very well may be because of that ruling under Donald Trump that they may have had a legal leg to stand on. My view would be that's not a religion that the founding fathers were trying to create. But I do think that IRS ruling, I was really surprised to see that they did that.
So just not correcting you, but just the context of that is the Satanic Temple applied for tax-exempt status, and the IRS did grant it in 2019. That doesn't necessarily mean the government supports it, but they did grant it.
No, yeah, exactly. But they recognized it as a religion because otherwise you wouldn't have been able to do it. I don't think that was the right decision. As a religion, that's wrong.
But you think they should take it down in the Capitol?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if they're going to get sued on it, I think you fight that fight. But I think it may be, and I don't know how the legislature analyzed it. It very well may be because of that ruling. They feel that they may lose. So I don't know what they did to do it. But yeah, I don't. In Florida, I don't think we probably would have had it up. Let's bring in Brooks Reynolds. He is the co-founder of the Blue Ribbon Bacon Festival, and he brought enough for everybody here tonight. I'm just joking. He didn't. He's the CEO of JR South Pork Ranch. He's a Republican from Des Moines, currently undecided. Brooks.
Governor, again, thank you so much for your service and for spending so much quality time here in Iowa. I think this is a very important question for all Iowans. What was your favorite food item at the Iowa State Fair this year?
You know, it's funny. Pork on a stick, but I did not do it in public because they said if you get a picture of it, you know, it's a really bad thing. But I tell you one thing, though, just on a policy thing, this Prop 12, what it's doing to the pork producers, help is on the way, my friend. We're going to take care of that. California should not be dictating how you're raising hogs and producing pork.
I want you to meet Grant Bozen from West Des Moines. He's a Republican who voted for Joe Biden in 22. He's currently undecided in the primary or the caucus here. Grant?
Governor DeSantis, I'm 27 years old, and I never remember the country being so deeply divided and in a worse position mentally than ever before. My question for you tonight is, how will you specifically help reunite this amazing country?
Well, thanks, Grant. I appreciate that. And you're right. Look, I think what we've seen is fighting polarization for no reason. So, look, there's important issues. You can count on me. I'm going to take strong stands. I'm going to deliver big results. As a leader, when you make decisions, not everyone's going to like it. That just goes with the territory. What I'm not going to do is go out of my way to alienate people for no reason. If there's a substantive disagreement, let the chips fall where they may. But I think if you look at Trump tweeting and attacking people, I think that created division that we didn't need. I think Biden, when he gives that speech in front of the thing where his fists are there saying that MAGA are like almost anti-American, that creates division. We don't need to be doing that. We need to be focusing on principle. We need to aim higher, and we need to deliver results for people. If you disagree with me 50% of the time, okay, we'll hash that out. But I want to work with you on the other 50%. Heck, if someone agrees with me 20% of the time, we can fight on the 80, but you got to be willing when the next issue comes up to be willing to work on the 20. That's just how I am as a leader. And in Florida, we had some tough fights, but I've also done some of my policies that got unanimous support. Some of the things we've done for conservation, some of the things we've done to raise teacher salaries, some of the things we've done to support police officers. So it can be done, but I do think it requires a leader that's going to appeal to the better angels of our nature.
Who is your favorite Democrat in Florida? Democratic official, not just like guy you know. But who's your favorite Democratic official in Florida?
Oh man, the minute I do that, then they're all of a sudden gonna have.
Give me one who's in the top 10.
I mean, so I appointed a fella down as sheriff of Broward to replace Scott Israel, who was, he had a great life story. We put him in there. Greg Toney. We also had we actually just had a sheriff who was a Democrat from St. Lucie County, who we worked very closely with. Rick Bradshaw, sheriff of Palm Beach County, great guy. It shows you there really isn't that much difference in some of these issues when you're dealing with it. So yeah, we do that. I think what happened is the minute I've started to go a little national, it was tougher for some of the Dems to want to work because they get blowback from their base. And that's just the situation that we find ourselves in. But we do have some good ones in Florida.
We want to thank Governor DeSantis, obviously Casey DeSantis as well. Thanks to our host here at Grandview University. And thanks to you, all of you who make a town hall what it is. Really appreciate it. Join us tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern for our town hall with GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. News Night with Abby Phillip starts now. Thanks again, everyone.
All right.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the town hall. I will be covering the Vivek town hall tomorrow, so make sure you're right back here, same place, same time, and I'll give you guys my analysis, and we'll watch it together. So thank you guys for tuning in. Unless you guys want to chat for a little bit, I'm probably going to get out of here. I've got finals to study for and some other things to work on. And we didn't have as big of a turnout as we did for the Trump town hall, so... which is to be expected because everybody wants to see Trump, and DeSantis is at 12% in the polls. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, but I'll see you guys right back here tomorrow night at 8. So thanks for watching.